Today we will be talking about The Crucible and Harrison Bergeon. Together we gather the theme as, when the government or controlling power abuses their power, rebellions rise up but usually fails. And this presentation is by Savannah Eastis, Noel Seaman, and Nick Colvin.
Harrison Bergeron is a short story that was written in 1961 by Kurt Vonnegut. This dystopian fiction was originally published in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. The story takes place in 2081, where the government has established equality among all people, but by doing this, they have restricted what makes others unique. Because everyone has to be equal, everyone was as strong as the weakest link. Handicaps were put on citizens to restrict their abilities and brain processes.
The setting of Harrison Bergeon is taking place in the United States in about the year 2081. All the action takes place in the living room of Hazel and George Bergeon. In line 1 and 2 of the story, it states, the year was 2081 and everybody was finally equal.
The Crucible by Arthur Miller was written in 1952. The play portrays the historical Salem witch trials, which took place from 1692 to 1693, in comparison to McCarthyism that occurred during the time of publishing. Arthur Miller wrote The Crucible as an allegory to the Red Scare, and shows the inconsistencies made between the Salem witch trials and the communist investigations conducted in the U.S. The Red Scare was a widespread fear in the rise in communism throughout the United States during the Cold War. At the time of McCarthyism, many Hollywood actors and directors were blacklisted. This means they were unable to get jobs in their industry because they were found associated with communist ideas. The play portrays how fear caused unfair trials and accusations in both Salem and during the Red Scare.
The setting of The Crucible is taking place in Salem, Massachusetts Bay Colony, taking place in 1692 and 1693. In Act 1, it states Salem, Massachusetts, and the spring of the year 1692. The people of the Crucible are Puritanism. In Act 1, it also states, I want the light of God, I want the sweet love of Jesus, I dance for the devil. This is meaning that they cannot do anything else besides what is given to everybody. They have to follow one certain rule.
There are several examples of similar characters between The Crucible and Harrison Bergeon, and one of these is Judge Danforth and Diana Moon Glampers. Judge Danforth is the deputy governor and the head judge of the Salem witch trials, and he's also a very controlling and dominating figure who cares more about the court's reputation than the consequences. An example of this is when he said in Act 4, postponement now speaks a floundering on my part. Reprieve or pardon must cast doubt upon the guilt of them that died till now. This shows that he is more concerned with the public's respect for the courts than the negative impacts that it had on the people. Miller wants to portray the authority figure as corrupt and selfish. He communicates to the reader that Judge Danforth will go to any length necessary to maintain his status, even if it requires killing innocent people. In Harrison Bergeron, Diana Moon Glampers is in control of all the handicaps and wants to maintain complete control over all people. On page 6 it says, Diana Moon Glampers came into the studio with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the Emperor and Empress were dead before they hit the floor. This reveals the lengths that she would go to maintain her power when threatened. She's willing to shoot someone in a public place in order to ensure her authority. Vonnegut wants to show how dictatorial leaders may seem like they want the best for people, but in reality they are selfish and are only interested in maintaining their power. Both settings have an effect on the characters' actions. During the time period in which The Crucible takes place, courts held virtually all power in Salem. Judge Danforth was able to manipulate this in order to impose his will in determining who is guilty. Similarly, the futuristic dystopian society in Harrison Bergeron provides an opportunity for Diana Moon Glampers to control everyone. Since no one is smart or talented, she was able to do almost anything that she wanted without worrying about being criticized or having anyone question her methods.
Anne Putnam is a catalyst in The Crucible. She is the wife of Thomas Putnam and has had 7 miscarriages. One of her children survived. Anne Putnam causes a wave of hysteria in Salem about witchcraft because it uses her mind as to why she cannot bear children. She states, I take it on my soul, but who else may surely tell us what person murdered my babies? Because Rebecca Nurse was able to have many healthy children, Anne gained a strong jealousy towards her. She tells Rebecca, "Let God blame me, not you, Rebecca. I'll not have you judging me any more." Because of her anger, she accuses Rebecca Nurse of witchcraft and dealing with the devil. Hazel Bergeron is the wife of George Bergeron and the mother of Harrison. Hazel is referred to having a perfectly average strength and intelligence. She states, "I think I'd make a good handicapper general." "Good as anybody else," said George. "Who knows better than I do what normal is," said Hazel. Because she is so perfectly average, she has no handicaps. She is unable to think about anything except in short bursts. After Hazel tells her husband to take off some of his handicaps, George states, "The minute people start cheating on laws, what do you think happens to society?" A siren was going off in George's head. "Reckon it all fell apart," said Hazel. "What would?" said George blankly. "Society," said Hazel uncertainly. "Wasn't it that what you just said?" "Who knows," said George. This shows how short the couple's thinking processes are. Hazel's stupidity overwhelms her kind nature. This causes her to be blind to the government's abuse of power. After witnessing the death of her child on television, Hazel asks George why he's so upset. He replies, "I forget. Something real sad on television." "Forget sad things," Hazel replies. The characters, Ann Putnam and Hazel Bergeron, are both blinded from the absurdity of their situations because of their own mental blockades.
Character comparison between John Proctor and Harrison Bergeron. John Proctor believes his affair with Abigail damaged him in the eyes of God. From committing sin and committing adultery, he lacks the capacity to forgive himself. John Proctor reveals the common theme in the stories where he reveals when he is convicted, he tries to rise above in the society. He's committed of adultery, he gets trial but gets taken down by Abigail. He fails to do so. In Act 1, it states, "I can," and there's your first marvel. That I can. You have made your magic. For now, I can do things. See some shred of goodness. John tells Reverend Hale and Danforth that he feels he is finally recovering from his many sins that he has. But he found a shred of goodness by refusing to falsely convict him. And this is also in Act 4. Harrison Bergeron is a 14-year-old boy who is dangerous with him being a genius and heavy built. For what he is, he has to wear handicaps to weigh him down and to create him as equal. Harrison Bergeron reveals a common theme in the story. Harrison reveals a theme by when he first was held, he was out of hand, destroying stuff. He broke out of his shelter and wanted to prove that handicaps are stupid and useless. With doing so, he injured many and feared many. He then gets surrounded and then shot down in front of people and on air. In the story, it states, Harrison Bergeron, age 14, she said in a crackle squawk, has just escaped from jail where he was held on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government. He's a genius and an athlete. It is under handicapped and should be regarded as extremely dangerous. And this is line 104 to 109. Both John Proctor and Harrison Bergeron share a common interest of what they are trying to do. They both try to overthrow the government, but in the end, they both usually fail. With them trying to make a statement to the crowd, they end up being shot down or taken in the wrong way.
In closing, The Crucible and Harrison Bergeron share the same common theme that when governments or people in positions of power misuse their power, some people will attempt to resist, but ultimately get crushed. Both authors reveal this through characters and setting. Miller uses Judge Danforth, John Proctor, and Ann Putnam to show how controlling powers can be oppressive and unfair and how people respond to this type of government. Similarly, Vonnegut portrays these same ideas through Diana Moon Glampers, Harrison Bergeron, and Hazel. They also both use the setting as a tool to influence the characters' actions. They are both trying to spread a message about the dangers of governments that have complete control over their people and the differences between people that embrace the oppression versus the people that resist against it.